Hi, this is Frank DiMora with the Last Chronicles of Planet Earth, and today I have a guest by the name of Ted Burke. We're dealing with the prophecy in the book of Revelation, chapter 18, where it talks about the Babylon being destroyed. And there has been some controversy about these scriptures in chapter 18. Some people would like to symbolize this and make the United States as Babylon. But when you study the scriptures in the book of Revelation and when you go back into other scriptures, for example, in the book of Jeremiah, chapter 51, verse 43, and when you see Isaiah chapter 13, verse 20, you'll see that those prophecies about Babylon actually haven't been fulfilled yet. So Babylon is going to be rebuilt. We see modern day Iraq is Babylon. And it's going to be rebuilt again. And for those of you who believe that the prophecy has already been fulfilled, we know that it isn't, because in the Old Testament it says that they'll never use any of the stones, and that land would never be inhabited again, and it was going to be destroyed as Sodom and Gomorrah. And so if it was destroyed like in Sodom and Gomorrah, no one would ever live there again, just like Sodom and Gomorrah. But obviously, watch the news and you'll see that not only is Iraq still intact, but Saddam Hussein was actually building Babylon. And as a matter of fact, on the bricks that he was using, he was stamping his name, saying that this was the son of Nebuchadnezzar. Nebuchadnezzar was the king of Babylon. So we know that there's going to be a Babylon in the future. And knowing this, what I've done is look into the scriptures and say, what is the Lord showing us in the scripture? Now, a lot of people are very interested in world finances, especially now that the world leaders, the governments around the world are going to get rid of the dollar as the reserve currency. At least that's the attempt that they're making now. We see this in the news on a regular basis. China is moving in that direction because they hold most of our debt, and they're not going to be paying our debt much longer. So it becomes of importance of Babylon. Now, in taking of the Joseph in the Old Testament, where Joseph was able to interpret dreams, and one of those dreams that he interpreted was the 7 year of famine in Egypt. And so God prepared Joseph, and not only did he save Egypt and as he was storing up food for this famine that was coming, but he also helped his family and as a result of this. So we can take wisdom from the scriptures. Now, if the Lord shows us, if you're Christians and you're reading the scriptures and you want to invest, for example, what better way to invest than to invest in what the Lord has to say? But you really have to be well versed in the scriptures to understand what he is saying. But what I have looked at, and this is where Ted Burke is coming in, because he's the one that I've contacted about, or one of the people that I've contacted about this, is if Babylon is going to be rebuilt again, should we be looking for a currency that's coming out of Babylon, since Babylon would be the hub of the world commerce during the tribulation, where the Antichrist will control everything. And this is, right now, I'd like to introduce Ted Burke. We'll give you a little bit about his background, and I'll unleash him, and we'll ask some questions. So, Ted, you there?
I'm here. Yes.
And everything okay? You can hear me fine?
Yes, I can.
All right. Ted, could you just give us a little bit of your background?
Well, I have, been trying to follow God's ways for, about 30 years. And, I've been preparing for end times for a number of years, and I really feel like this was a blessing to be introduced to the Iraqi Dinar when I was about 7 years ago. And it's been quite a learning curve, and at the same time, it's been quite a test of patience. And I thought that, after raising several kids, that I'd learned all the patience that was necessary. But when it comes to our finances and our pocketbook, God really does know how to get to us. here I'm learning more and more patience and trust also. That I have to trust in continuing to move forward and be patient for God's work to be done.
All right. Well, could you tell the audience a little bit about the dinar and what's happening?
Yes. Well, I was first introduced to it about 7 years ago, and I know that history does repeat itself. We have seen cases of currencies revaluing after wars, and I really feel this is one way for the prophecy to come to fruition, and that is where God says the money from the wicked will be handed over to the righteous. Here is a perfect example and opportunity for individuals to hang on to this currency from Iraq as it is being rebuilt and becomes modern-day Babylon. If a person doesn't believe that could be the breadbasket for the Middle East, then maybe they need to run from this. But if you believe Scripture and you believe that this will be the breadbasket for the Middle East, then it stands to reason that there's going to be a lot of money flowing through there, which we're already starting to see, and the dinar will revalue. Now, one big question is, everybody wants to know that magic day of when. Well, Frank, you and I have talked about this before, and it's just like end times. If I ask you, you're definitely tuned into the Scriptures in reference to end times. If I ask you, do you know when Jesus is coming back? Do you know the day or the hour? What would your answer be?
Only the Lord knows.
That's right. And it's the same thing with this dinar. When is it going to revalue, and at what amount? Only the Lord knows. I don't really believe there's any officials in Iraq that know at this time, but we just have to trust and faith through this thing that it will happen in God's timing.
Right. Now the dinar, to my understanding, at least in my research that I've done, they're actually printing this money up in, I believe it's the UK, and it's supposed to be the most elaborate money. In other words, you can't counterfeit this. Do you know anything about that?
Well, De La Rue is the company that got the printing contract, and they print most of the world's currencies. And they took all the latest technology that was available to put into this currency for counterfeiting control. And when, I think it was USA Today had an article way back when that said this Iraqi dinar is a counterfeiter's nightmare, because for multiple reasons, not just the security features, but right now the value is so low that it would cost a counterfeiter more to reproduce these than what the paper's actually worth right now.
But
if it could be done.
Right. Now the money that is will be printed is not to my understanding, if people are buying dinaries that has the picture of Saddam Hussein on it, I call him Saddam Hussein, but Saddam Hussein is not, it's not going to be worth anything. Is that correct?
Correct. I mean, unfortunately, while I was doing my research, my secretary and family members, friends went out, and after doing a few minutes of research, let their greed, kick in, and immediately went out and sent money overseas, sent money to strangers, and started getting these old Saddam notes back, not knowing what they were doing. And I felt terrible because they found out about this through me.
Right.
And so my wife and I said, look, what, we've got to be quiet. We can't tell a soul about this because, we feel somewhat responsible when someone goes out there and gets this and ends up with the old Saddam notes. Now, back in 2003, when this was printed, they gave the Iraqi people, or anyone holding the old Saddam notes, 90 days to swap it out for the new currency they've just released.
Mm-hmm.
And anybody after that 90 days that didn't turn their dinars in, their old notes, for the new, was out of luck. They just now have collectible wallpaper.
Wow. So now you have a website, correct?
No, no, I'm basically just going from word of mouth. I mean, there's so much fraud and greed that I've seen with this that we did have a website and people were trying to hack into it on a constant basis to get our database and to commandeer the website for hits and so forth. We just let it go. And
Mm-hmm.
um, we're not looking to have uh, an empire here of selling the dinar. All we do is open our existing inventory that we have for a safe haven for people to buy uh, amounts from us. And then when our inventory gets low, we just replace it or replenish it.
All right. So when you replace it, uh, for the knowledge purposes here, if say I were to come to you to buy Iraqi Dinari, the money that you're getting comes straight out of Iraq by some source to you, or how does it work?
Correct. I mean, I can't, for security reasons, I can't go into all the details, but we have over the last 7 years secured multiple um, sources, and I'm not going to give out these sources, but we have the ability to replace it in a safe manner, and that was with the amount we're getting shipped. It requires having insurance while the dinar is on the plane in case the plane goes down, and there's only I can say that Burke security is involved, and the U.S. Customs um, is overseeing things, and it's a very detailed and complex situation. But
All right.
it's being done above board and with the blessing of our government and customs and so forth.
Right. Now, George, was it President Bush uh, Jr. that he was the one that actually passed the law saying that anyone in the United States could invest in Iraq and making it legal to buy dinaris, correct?
That is correct. And when he made that announcement, everybody thought, well, something's going to happen tomorrow. And it did cause quite a frenzy. But once again, I mean, I really felt that, God was telling me that, it's going to be a while. And that was, 7 years ago. And people, just really rejected that because they wanted to be rich tomorrow.
Right.
And so I just stood firm, and, my wife was obedient and listened to me that, this, 7 years ago I said nothing will happen in the first 5 years. And nothing has. But, I do know that we're close to something. Exactly when, I can't answer, and I won't speculate on that.
No, I totally agree with you on that. This is just for informational purposes because I know that there's a lot of Christians out there who are focusing on the book of Revelation, and if you're in chapter 18, um, as I said, there's a lot of people who are teaching that this is symbolism and that Iraq is never going to be rebuilt again. But obviously, if you're there in the Middle East, you see that that's not the case, and the scriptures prove it because it's never been demolished as it said in the scriptures that it was going to be Sodom and Gomorrah. So, um, well, this is definitely a good start for the interview. Let me just close at this point, and we're going to do part two with Ted. And if you come to my website, which is www.bibleprophecyman.com, you'll see both of the segments there. And if we need a third segment, we'll go into the third segment. But for now, if you're at my site, scroll down and you'll see the second part of the interview.